Alrighty, we are starting today. One Vision Ministry, and about to go forth with a message. The message today is called Gimme Back My Son. All right, Abba Yah, we thank you for this Shabbat, one of many. May this Shabbat be one that magnifies your name as all should magnify your name. As we go forth in rest, many teachings are going forth today. May that those that need a particular message tap in and gain from the messages out there what they need for this day so that they may enjoy their rest, be able to recover from their rest, and be able to be restored and be able to get back into the day-to-day, the battles that go forth, being your light in this earth, magnifying your name in their doings here on earth, be it at work, be it in their homes, be it in their businesses, be it in their careers, whatever they're doing, even those in the entertainment field, may they be covered, those that are magnifying and honoring your name. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. Again, this is One Vision Ministry going forth. I'm Ak Shanquilla or Shanquilla Carter. So show that again, One Vision Ministry. And let's get going. So my focus is Give Me Back My Son today. So I'm gonna go over here to one of my favorite um, set of verses, and it's basically a foundational verse for what I'm going on today. So let's go on over here. Let's get at it. Let me go ahead and set everything up and get moving. So here we go. We're going over to Shamuth or Exodus 4:22. And well, actually, we're going to start at 21. And so here we go. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, as you go back to Mizraim, Mizraim is what modernly is called Egypt. See that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart so that he does not let the people go. You shall say to Pharaoh, thus said Yahuwah, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. Ooh, ooh, I'm killing your son, your firstborn. Man, I'm a big proponent of Yahusha, yes. Many call him Jesus. But the narrative has always been that he's been this peaceful, very calm demeanor. They don't show the brashness, that he has. When he told the woman basically, the children's bread is not for the dogs. And she had to relate to him. Only even the dogs get the crumbs from the table. But that's kind of going off my focus. There's so much going on. What I guess got me this message or whatever. I was given some information about how in Mississippi there are about 215 melanin people were found buried dead, and the people there had knew that their children or their relatives were missing, but they went on with their life, basically living and existing. Um, they knew their relatives were missing, but they never, I guess, conceived in their mind that something as tragic as them being murdered or killed, buried somewhere, that was not even a thought. So, you know, I'm going to share a thought I shared, and then I'm gonna get into this message that I'm planning on bringing. But I do want to share a thought that I shared, and maybe that will give some clarity to where I feel like my spirit led me, the ruach has led me, and yeah, it just it's better for me to read it and stuff. It came to my mind freely, but I'm gonna just read it. And so it's like when the enemy has taken your children and even killed your children, and you are content with thinking that your children are only missing, you find bliss in your ignorance. Your children, as well as your condition, is as your condition that you're facing. Is that you're facing duress. Your children, as well as your condition, is that you're facing duress. Duress is, I guess, it's a lack of peace. You're under pressure. But you're being under attack, basically. Duress. Look up the definition yourself. But it's you're under attack. But in this, I'm gonna keep reading. Your children, as well as your condition, is that of facing duress. Yet you are idle. And so idle basically is like you're not doing anything. You're just chilling, standing still, or so I'm. This is IDLE and not IDOL. Okay, but here it goes. You have made an idol, IDOL, of the illusion of comfort. Have you really declared a reason to live for if you have failed to find something worthy of dying for? There's this thing called righteous indignation. So going back to my Give Me Back My Son. Going back to that. Let's get on that. Whew. Um, Israel is the son of Yah. And he's, Yahusha is the son of Yah. I don't have any argument with that because Yahuwah is the father. Yahusha is Israel, and he's the son. So Israel the son, Yahusha is the son, Yahusha is Israel. All of those things line up. So I'm fine with that. But the problem is this, that people keep seeking for solutions of peace and thinking that they're going to avoid any type of violence or anything. And I'm not saying for us to seek out revenge and stuff like that. That's not what I'm speaking on. But to think that a violent situation is going to be resolved without a corresponding violence is kind of it's an interesting dynamic to me, that you're going to think a bully is going to stop bullying just to stop. They're going to stop that. So I want to share some scripture and show some scenarios, basically. So what I'm going to do is let's get to it. Let's go to some text and let's share some text. That whole scenario that I talked about right there with Pharaoh and Mizraim, they were being held in the land of Egypt or Mizraim. And Yah said, "Give me back my son." He said, "Let my son go to serve me." And of course, Pharaoh was not willing. And most know the narrative of the plagues that came their way. Yah fought that. And he even said, "I'm killing your firstborn son." So he killed all of the firstborn sons in Egypt. Violence occurred. These people were giving violence towards Israel, and violence was returned upon them. It was not a peaceful transaction per se. That peace that came about did not come about without some violence occurring. People, have heard the text talking about and it's not really dealing with this, but they talking about the kingdom suffers violence and the violence take by force. And it doesn't fit the context, but it just is interesting how people can constantly want peace, but want to avoid confrontation. So I'm going to go to some people here in the text. Let's go and talk about Abraham, our ancestor. That's where we'll go first. And so let me share my screen. And so this is Bereshit or Genesis 12. And so starts right here at 5. And Abram took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, or well, it's probably more pronounced Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the beings whom they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. See, Lot's father died in a situation that basically Abraham set in motion. So he took Lot, his nephew, and basically raised him up as a son. Since his brother was deceased, he took in Lot, who was his nephew, his brother's son, but he raised him basically like a son. And so there's more to this story, but let's go to it. We're going to go over here to Bereshit 13 and see how some things went about. So now Lot went, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. So just like Abram had gained wealth, his being one who wealth came to because he was following Yah, it also came to Lot or Lot. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. For their possessions were great, so that they could not dwell together. So though he took him in as a son, the favor of Yah rested on him so much that their possessions were too great for them to dwell together. And say, see 7. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. And at that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brothers. He's saying we're kinsmen. He ain't identifying himself as his brother because he was his brother's son, but he's letting him know we family. Is not the land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I go to the left. They wasn't separating because there was animosity, but it was like, they had too much possessions. Not that their herdsmen had some conflict, but they did not. This was, again, like his son, who amassed a lot of wealth by being in his home. And Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the plain of the Yarden, and it was well watered everywhere before Yahuwah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Like the garden of Yahuwah, like the land of Mizraim as you go toward Zoar. So Lot chose for himself all the plain of the Yarden, and Lot moved east. Thus they separated from each other. Abram dwelling in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelling in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent as far as Sodom. So, see, right here, a man and his son. I know he wasn't his biological son, but he was raised up, like his son. Raised up like his son. So he's doing well. He obviously loves him. Well, to me, obviously, but if you read the text, you see he loves him. So we're gonna continue on, because eventually something occurs that he has to do the same thing and say, "Give me back my son." So let's go back over here, and then we'll go over to Bereshit 14. And we're gonna start at 12. And of course, I've said this before in other messages. The text never had chapter and verse. These are guides and things that were put in place for us to help us in our reading and comprehension, but they were not there originally in the original text when it was written in Hebrew or Aramaic. It was not there. So just had to make that clear. Okay. So there were these kings going on in the same area that Lot was living in. They basically took over those kingdoms in that area because those they had basically given tribute or whatever, and they basically took everything in that area. And Lot happened to be one of the things or one of the people taken in all his possession. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, which says Sodom, but it was Sodom, and his goods and left. So he was basically taken as hostage or taken as a possession by these other kings. And you know, Abram got word of it. So he said, and one who had escaped came and informed Abram the Hebrew. I had a discussion with somebody who had a problem with me saying that Abram was a Hebrew, but anyway, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and the brother of Anar, and they had a covenant with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother, basically his son, was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Now, notice, this is only 318 people that he had with him. What they were going against, the numbers were way greater than that. But again, this was a man that Yah favored, and he had a mission. He wanted his son back. That was his whole mission. He heard his son had been taken. He wanted his son back. So he's ready with trained men to go into battle. By violence, his son was taken, and by violence, he's willing and ready to go get his son back. He got trained men. He's ready. He's armed. He ain't going as a diplomat. He ain't going with diplomacy. He's not going to talk it out. No, he going to get back his son. So, okay, 15. And he and his servants divided against them by night and struck them. He didn't talk to them, he struck them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is on the left of Damascus. So he brought back all the goods and also brought back his brother or his son, Lot, and his goods, as well as the women and the people. So he got it all back. He got it all back. This man heard his son had been taken. And that was enough for him to gather up his resources and say, let's go get my son back. He didn't do it with diplomacy. He didn't go talking. He went with trained men and he went with violence on his mind. I'm not trying to push violence, but I'm showing you the mindset. When someone's son is taken, when someone's most valuable possession that's not a material thing, his seed, his bloodline, his lineage is taken by violence, this man is willing to do violence. Yah is our father. I showed the situation when it came with Pharaoh and Moses, and that was my foundation text, and it showed that, yeah, he killed the firstborn. I know people are like, oh, killing, they always want to put thou shalt not kill, but it really says thou shalt not murder. And righteous indignation and basically self-defense is not murder. It may involve killing, but it's not murder. If you return what has been given to you, it's not the same as you being the aggressor. You're being the bully. You're being the one that is actually defending yourself and actually um, setting to restore what has been breached. That's not something that is viewed as evil. But that's just my perception, I guess, because people say oh, that's your interpretation. I'm like, but that's two situations. I want to go to a third. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Oh, nah, that ain't what I want to share. We still want me and that self promotion will get her. I guess maybe I need to let that go. But it's funny. All right, Shemiel Aleph, and we're gonna look at our ancestor David, as we have learned to call him. But this is Shemiel Aleph, or First Samuel 30. And it came to be when Dawid and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag and struck Ziklag and burned it with fire. Now, Dawid had just come back with his men from doing feats and things that warriors do, other battles, and of course they left their families behind, their cattle and all their possessions behind when they went and did this, and they come back to find out that their things had been plundered, that what they left safe was no longer safe. And so here it goes. And they took captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but they led them away and went their way. So they didn't kill them, but they still came into there and snatched them up. They kidnapped them. You can't do that without violence. They didn't kill them, but they still enacted some violence towards them. They were defenseless because they didn't have their coverings there. Their husbands, the men, the fighters weren't there. And as they were uncovered, they were led away. They were captured. People don't take serious the role of covering. Some people don't believe they need covering, but of course, these women and children and the livestock were uncovered. And these people, the Amalekites, came in, and what did they do? They kidnapped the women and children and all of the possessions. And Dawid and his men came to the city and saw it burnt with fire. Violence, again, there goes some violence. This is where they lived. Their women snatched and they burnt it with fire. And their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. They got kidnapped. This kingdom, or this, it wasn't a set kingdom, but this man's, who was a king, his possessions got taken by violence. The violence took it by force. And Dawid and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no power to weep. So they come back and these is the protectors, but now they broken down emotionally. They hurting. They hurting bad because what they were covering, what they were supposed to protect, they left uncovered, and now a violation occurred. Man, and Dawid's two wives, Ahinoam, the Israelitess, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite, had been taken captive. Man, they took his women. And Dawid was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him. So look, he done led them into many battles, but since now those they were supposed to be covering while they out with him basically got taken, they want to kill the leader. See, but we supposed to be a kai. We supposed to be one together. We're not supposed to turn on one another. We supposed to remember the opposition that we're dealing with, the ones who actually captured, those who actually did violence towards us. But no, if you look at us modernly now, Israel, we fighting one another. We turning on one another. We greatly distressed and we turning on one another and not deciding to take out that anger and hostility on those that have actually put us in the distress, those who have taken advantage of us and brought forth violence to our children, violence to our wives, violence to our possessions. We rather turn on one another. And now we are doing to one another what has already been done to us. We're adding trauma on top of trauma. But and Dawid was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the being of all the people was grieved, each for his sons and his daughters. But Dawid strengthened himself in Yahuwah his Elohim. See, we got to remember that a higher, we got to remember that we are full of energy. The Father is in us. We are his image. Israel, we are the royal priesthood. We got to remember and strengthen himself in Yahuwah. No, the strength is not in us, but it's the Yahuwah that's in us. It's the Elohim that's in us, the Father that's in us. We got to remember that and gain strength from that. Not in our self will, not in our self promotion, but in Yah who's in us. And Dawid said to Abiathar, the priest, son of Ahimelech, please bring the shoulder garment here to me. So Abiathar brought the shoulder garment to Dawid. That might have been the ephod, I don't know. But this man is finna operate like a priest. He talking to the priest and he finna operate like a priest. And Dawid inquired of Yah. He prayed. He encountered Yah, say, do I pursue this band? Do I overtake them? He didn't ask the priestess. He went directly to Yah. Do I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for you shall certainly overtake them and certainly rescue. See, he didn't just immediately respond with violence, but he interceded and sought Yah and said, what do I do? And seeing that violence came towards them, Yah said, pursue, and you shall certainly overtake and certainly rescue. He brought forth his situation to Yah, and Yah gave him clearance to go forth, to overtake his enemy, to rescue those that had been lost. So Dawid went, he and 600 men who were with him. He taking 600 men. See, remember we just got through talking about how Abram took 300. But let's keep going. And came to the Wadi Basor, where a halt was made by those who were left behind. While Dawid pursued, he and 400 men for 200 halted, who were too faint to pass over the Wadi Basar. See, these 200 of the 600 was grieving, and it was too much for them. So, okay, we don't need you with us. We don't need any weakness amongst us. We need those that's fully invested in the situation. No, we're not kicking you to the curb, but when it comes to going to the situation, we have to have those that have the mindset that victory is coming our way. You know, those that have doubt, that have questions, you don't have to forsake them and kick them completely out, but no, they should not be the ones to go forward in the journey and in the task that's ahead. They might have to just sit there on the sideline and just observe and watch what's going on. And they found a man in the field, a Mizraim, an Egyptian, and took him to Dawid. And they gave him bread, and he ate, and they let him drink water. And he gave a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his strength came back to him, for he had not eaten bread nor drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And Dawid said to him, "To whom do you belong? And where are you from?" And he said, "I am a young man from Mizraim, from Egypt, servant of an Amalekite." See, he was a slave. He was a servant of an Amalekite. And my master left me behind, for I had been sick 3 days. See, he was left behind. So now he gonna serve a purpose. We attacked the south of the Kerethites and against that which belongs to Yahudah. We got y'all people. And upon the south of Caleb, and we burnt Ziklag with fire. So he was a participant in all this that went on. And Dawid said to him, "Could you bring me down to the marauding band? He like, take me to the people who captured our people." And he said, "Swear to me by Elohim that you neither kill me nor surrender me into the hand of my master. Then I bring you down to the marauding band." See, he making a bargain, a deal. He pleading his case like, "Hey, I'll help you if you don't, if you surrender me, if you don't kill me." And he brought him down and saw they were spread out over all the land, eating and drinking and celebrating because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Yahudah. These folks is partying, enjoying themselves because they done took David's and his people's they prized possession, their families, and all of them. Man, they done jacked them and the Philistines, and now they party. And Dawid struck them. He brought that violence to them from twilight until the evening. So from basically, I think twilight is like dawn to the evening the next day of the next day, or is twilight when it gets dark at night, or before. I don't know. I might have to look that up. And none of them escaped except for 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. Man. So look, if 400 of them fled and they only came with 400, man, it had to be way more than 400 because 400 fled. And Dawid rescued all that the Amalekites had taken, and Dawid also rescued his 2 wives. And there was none missing to them, whether small or great, whether sons or daughters, or spoils, or whatever they had taken from them. Dawid recovered all. Besides, Dawid captured all the flocks and herds, and they had driven before those livestock, and they said, "This is Dawid's spoil. Give me back my son." Basically, Dawid got back his son. They got back their son. And it took forth violence. So I just don't see how we can conceive that Yah is not going to willingly get back his son, Israel, with violence when so much violence has happened to his son. That just don't set well. Look at me trying to straighten myself up so you can see that kingdom dominion. Oh man, that's one thing. Be who you are when you're ministering. Be who you are when you're going forth in life. I'm not saying if you have things that transgression is law that you stay with that, but your character, your integrity, your ability to I guess sing, praise, worship, all these things, your gifts, use them in everything that you do. But anyway, get back to what we're doing here. Man, see all of that went forth, how Yah again and again had these people getting back their sons. You had first, I brought up, even though I'm not using it in order, I showed you how Yah got his son back from Pharaoh. Then I showed you how Abraham got his son, or the one he had guardianship over Lot, so that was like his son, got him back. Now I'm showing how Dawid got back his sons and daughters and all the people's sons and daughters. And it's like, man, over and over, you can find narratives like this where there was violence that occurred towards Israel. Yah used someone to restore them. And it usually was some violence occurring. Even when there wasn't any violence by men, Yah used violence. He didn't kill many people in the name of recovering Israel. So we've been in bondage here in America for over 400 years or around that time. And all of this stuff that is going on to Israelites all over the earth. And we think that no violence is going to occur to those that oppose to us. It would be great if they willingly submit, if they come up out of the position of head and become tail willingly. But when have you ever known a bully to willingly give up their dominance or ability to impose their will? You don't really see that. You don't see somebody just willingly giving up their position of strong man. You usually got to bind the strong man. I know I'm using that different than what is set up, but they are acting as strong men towards us. And you think that they're not going to have to be bound up. That's not a reality that many want to deal with. They want to believe that peace is going to happen without any type of chaos whatsoever. And the chaos doesn't have to be from, like we're not the author of it. They authored it. It's the response. It's the righteous indignation. It's the balancing of the scale. These things are able to occur and are going to happen because wickedness has to be judged. A result has to come from it. There has to be some accountability set. I know that it makes people uncomfortable. Violence, violence. But again, like with the 215 found down there in Mississippi, many probably have heard about the Devil's Punch Bowl. So many atrocities have happened towards us, and I don't want to give us a clear pass because a lot of these things did happen because of our disobedience. But still, the scale has to be balanced. Just like when we were disobedient, we were able to set up under curses due to our disobedience. Those that did evil towards us also, that scale has to be balanced for them as well. It just works that way. You're going to reap from what you sow. Some try to use the term karma. I don't like that term, but how do you expect to plant something and put something out there and not get that in return? That doesn't really make sense. If you put forth apple seed in the ground, you're going to grow apples. So if you put forth violence in the earth, violence is going to return to you. Now, those that are in a position of watchman and judge, when they do things as a result of violence that have occurred, that's not coming back to them because they are in the position or they're doing the will of Yah. The judges have to do their job. And of course, Israel was set to be judges over earth. Just as Adam was supposed to be the one having the kingdom dominion over earth, so forth and so on, those of his lineage established all the way to Israel, those that would be royal priesthood, those who would be remnant and rulers along with Yahuwah or earth. Basically, you have a body of Yahusha. Yahusha being Yahuwah is salvation. Yeah, it's hard for people to grasp any of this or whatever. And if you got any feedback, please share it. I like the dialogue. It definitely helps me sharpen my iron. I don't see it as arguing as some people. I see it as reasoning the text. As long as there's no insults coming along with it, let's go for it. But anyway, this is the Shabbat. I'm gonna get off of here. I'm gonna let people get back to the rest of their rest, and I'm pretty sure there are many other videos, lives, Zooms that people want to attend. I appreciate those that listen to this. So, Abba Yah, I thank you for the Shabbat. I thank you that you are one who is mindful as a father, that you have put forth a son, and you have not put out your son to have your son abused, killed, taken advantage of, any of those things. You are a covering father, and you will get forth the vengeance. You will get forth the recompense that belongs to you. Vengeance is yours. So you won't allow your son to be violated forever, especially if he turns back to you. If he teshuvas and he obeys you, you will be his hedge of protection. You will be his covering. And I know that when I say he is, some may take that and try to skew it, but when we talk about Israel being a son, it's talking about men and the women, the whole nation, the children. It's not speaking of a gender. It's speaking of an Akkad body, one. Don't mind Yahusha being the head. He is the head. But the body, the remnant, the royal priesthood, they are anointed as well. They are Messiah as well. May we walk according to that. Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. Reflecting you always, acknowledging your dominion and your ways in our walk, glorifying and magnifying your name, setting forth your Moedims, and obeying and getting prepared for you to return and take this thing to eternity. Hallelujah and hallelujah. Shabbat shalom.